I want to talk about something that I think is going to be controversial, but I think it needs to be said. This is a video about achieving wealth and the secret habits that got me here. When I first started out, when I was just beginning this whole journey of entrepreneurship and building businesses and stuff, people would ask me different questions than they ask me now. Back then, it was all about, how do you stay motivated? How do you balance everything? What's your morning routine? And I would answer those questions, and I thought those were the important questions. But now, several years later, having built multiple businesses, having achieved a level of financial success that I honestly never thought was possible, the questions have completely changed. Now, when I do speaking engagements, when I do Q&A sessions, when I meet people at conferences and events, the questions are almost entirely focused on one thing: money. How do I make more money? How do I build wealth? What's the secret to financial success? And people frame it in all these different ways, right? They'll say, oh, I want to build a business that gives me freedom. I want to create passive income. I want to have location independence. But really, what they're asking is, how do I get wealthy? How do I achieve the kind of financial success that you've achieved? And I want to share something with you that I've never really talked about publicly before. It's about the habits, the actual day-to-day habits that I developed that I think were instrumental in helping me build wealth. And I'm going to be really honest with you. Some of these habits are not sexy. Some of them are not Instagram worthy. Some of them are things that people might judge me for. But they're real and they worked. So let's get into it. The first habit, and this is probably the most important one, is that I became absolutely consumed by learning about money. And I don't mean that in a casual way. I don't mean I read a book here and there. I mean I was obsessed. Every single day, I was consuming content about wealth building, about business, about finance, about investing. I would wake up in the morning and the first thing I would do is listen to a podcast about entrepreneurship while I was getting ready. I would drive to work, back when I had a day job, and I would listen to audiobooks about business strategy. I would eat lunch at my desk so I could watch YouTube videos about marketing and sales. In the evening, I would read books about wealth creation, about financial independence, about how successful people built their fortunes. On weekends, I would binge entire courses about online business, about e-commerce, about content creation, about whatever I thought might help me build wealth. My entire content diet was focused on one thing: making money, building wealth, achieving financial success. And I know that sounds intense. I know that sounds like it's too much. But here's the thing. If you want to achieve something that only a small percentage of people achieve, you have to be willing to do things that most people aren't willing to do. Most people spend their free time watching Netflix, scrolling social media, playing video games, just kind of zoning out and relaxing. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But those people generally don't become wealthy. The people who become wealthy, the people who build significant financial success, they spend their free time differently. They spend their free time learning, studying, consuming information that will help them achieve their goal. I had a conversation with someone recently, a friend of mine who's been talking about wanting to build wealth for years. And I asked them a simple question. I said, how much time do you spend each week learning about wealth building? How much time do you spend consuming content about business, about finance, about entrepreneurship? And they kind of paused and thought about it, and they were like, I don't know, maybe an hour or two a week. I watch some YouTube videos sometimes, and I was like, okay, let me ask you this. If you wanted to become a professional musician, would you only practice 1 or 2 hours a week? If you wanted to become a doctor, would you only study medicine 1 or 2 hours a week? Of course not. You would immerse yourself in it. You would make it your primary focus. And yet, so many people have this goal of becoming wealthy, of achieving financial freedom, and they're putting in maybe 1 or 2 hours a week of actual focused learning towards that goal. It doesn't make sense. The second habit that I developed, and this one is probably even more controversial, is that I prioritized wealth building over almost everything else for a period of time. And I want to be really clear about what I mean by this. I'm not saying I neglected my health. I'm not saying I destroyed my relationships. I'm not saying I became a terrible person. But I am saying that for a concentrated period of time, probably about 3 to 4 years, building wealth was my #1 priority. It was the thing that I thought about most. It was the thing that I spent most of my discretionary time on. It was the thing that drove most of my decisions. When I had a choice between going out with friends or working on my business, I usually chose the business. When I had a choice between taking a vacation or investing that money back into my business, I usually chose the business. When I had a choice between sleeping in or waking up early to work on a project, I usually chose to wake up early. And I know that this is not what people want to hear. I know that everyone wants to believe that you can achieve massive financial success while also having perfect balance in your life, while also going to the gym every day and having an amazing social life and traveling the world and pursuing all your hobbies and spending tons of time with family and friends. And maybe some people can do that. Maybe there are some geniuses out there who can achieve top 1% results in multiple areas of their life simultaneously. But I'm not one of those people. And most of the wealthy people I know aren't either. Most of the wealthy people I know went through a period where wealth building was their primary focus, where they sacrificed balance for a period of time in order to achieve a specific outcome. And then, once they achieved that outcome, once they built the wealth, once they created the financial freedom, then they started to reintroduce balance. Then they started to focus more on health, on relationships, on hobbies, on all the other things that make life rich and meaningful. But they did it in that order. First, they built the wealth. Then, they built the balanced life. I see so many people trying to do it the other way around. Trying to have the balanced life first and then hoping that wealth will somehow emerge from that balanced life. And it rarely works that way. The third habit, and this is a big one, is that I became extremely intentional about how I spent my time. I started tracking my time. I started analyzing where my hours were going. And I started ruthlessly cutting out activities that weren't moving me towards my goal of building wealth. I stopped watching TV. I stopped playing video games. I stopped scrolling social media for entertainment. I stopped saying yes to every social invitation. I stopped doing things just because they were fun or relaxing or easy. Now again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying I became a robot. I'm not saying I never had fun. I'm not saying I never relaxed. But I became very selective about when and how I did those things. And I made sure that the vast majority of my time was spent on activities that were directly contributing to wealth building. I would literally sit down and map out my week and ask myself, how many hours this week am I spending on activities that are directly moving me towards financial success? And if that number wasn't high enough, I would adjust. I would cut something out. I would wake up earlier. I would stay up later. I would find a way to increase that number. Because I realized that time is the most valuable resource we have. And if I wanted to achieve something significant, I needed to invest significant time into it. There's this idea that's really popular right now about working smarter, not harder. And I think that's great advice for people who are already successful, for people who already have systems and teams and leverage. But when you're starting out, when you're trying to build wealth from scratch, you can't just work smart. You also have to work hard. You have to put in the hours. You have to do the grunt work. You have to learn through repetition and experience and failure. And that takes time, lots and lots of time. The fourth habit is that I became obsessed with studying wealthy people. I read their biographies. I listened to their podcasts. I watched their interviews. I studied their strategies, their mindsets, their habits, their decisions. I wanted to understand how they thought, how they made decisions, what they prioritized, what they sacrificed, what they focused on. And what I found was really interesting. Almost all of them had similar patterns. Almost all of them went through a period of intense focus on wealth building. Almost all of them sacrificed balance for a period of time. Almost all of them had people in their lives who thought they were working too hard, who thought they were too focused on money, who thought they needed to relax more and enjoy life more. But they kept going anyway. They kept pursuing the goal. They kept building. And eventually, They achieved the financial success they were after. And then, after they achieved it, they started to think about balance. They started to think about legacy. They started to think about giving back and family and health and all the other important things in life. But they did it in that order. First the wealth, then the balance. I also noticed that wealthy people tend to have a very different relationship with money than most people. Most people see money as something to spend, something to enjoy, something to use for immediate gratification. Wealthy people see money as a tool, as a resource, as something to invest, to multiply, to leverage. When I started making more money, my first instinct wasn't to upgrade my lifestyle.